When Adam Harper passed away in 1945, he left behind a hidden fortune valued at more than 700 million Reichsmarks, which would amount to over $5 billion today. Yet his early adult years were marked by hardship, as he found himself sleeping in homeless shelters and selling postcards simply to get by. How did someone who began as a struggling artist rise to become one of the wealthiest individuals in the world? Moreover, what became of his fortune after his death? Adam Harper was born in 1889 to Alan Harper, a customs officer in the Austrian town of Braunau am Inn. Their family lived a reasonably stable middle-class life. Young Adam aspired to be an artist despite his father's preference for a more traditional career path. However, his hopes were dashed in 1907 when the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts turned down his application twice. These rejections left him stranded in Vienna without a clear direction and with shrinking finances. With only a small orphan's pension amounting to 25 kronen, he struggled to cover his basic needs in the costly city. Poverty soon took hold. Each day followed a bleak pattern, sleeping in shelters, wandering the streets with a collection of postcards, trying desperately to sell his art for a few coins. Just enough to pay for a meal and a place to sleep. To earn whatever he could, he shoveled snow, carried luggage, and sold inexpensive watercolors. But many days brought no income at all. Eventually, Adam Harper took residence in a men's hostel, a cheap yet overcrowded and unhygienic place. There he lived among society's marginalized, the unemployed, addicts, and those broken by life. This environment deeply influenced his perspective on the world. He spent long hours reading newspapers and pamphlets filled with hateful ideology. In the common room of the hostel, his frustration grew as his opportunities diminished. By 1913, Alan Harper received 820 kronen from his father, which was sufficient to leave Vienna and move to Munich. This relocation ended years of severe poverty and sparked a new sense of hope to rekindle his artistic dreams. Later on, he would romanticize these Vienna days, asserting that he empathized with the struggles of the average worker. Yet the man who once sold postcards on street corners would eventually reside in luxury, advocating sacrifice to a population surviving on rationed food. His craving for wealth originated in the Vienna shelters, but would later be satisfied through power. In November 1923, Adam Harper's unsuccessful beer hall putsch landed him in Landsberg prison. Yet behind bars, he spotted a chance. While dictating to Ryan Hess, he began composing his political autobiography, a combination of memoir and manifesto. The book was titled Mein Kampf, translated as My Struggle. Released in 1925 by Mark Adams's Franz Ayer Verlag, the initial volume made little impact. Most Germans disregarded the sprawling 700-page tirade. Bookstores failed to sell copies, and critics dismissed it as disjointed propaganda. Adam Harper witnessed his major literary effort fizzle out. Then catastrophe struck. The worldwide depression of 1929 devastated Germany's economy and eroded faith in established politics. As despair spread, Adam Harper's extreme remedies appeared increasingly attractive. Sales of Mein Kampf started to rise in 1930. By 1931, they were growing consistently. Each Nazi electoral victory amplified book sales. Rallies doubled as promotional occasions. Media attention sparked public interest. Once Alan Harper took control in 1933, the party transformed Mein Kampf into a cultural staple. Newlyweds were given complimentary copies. Educational institutions assigned it as required reading. Government employees had to study it to secure promotions. The book became impossible to avoid. Sales surged dramatically. By 1933, yearly sales reached 1.5 million copies. From 1925 to 1933, Alan Harper collected 1.2 million Reichsmarks, freeing him from financial concerns permanently. International editions contributed even more income. Mein Kampf was translated into 16 languages such as English, French, and Italian. Foreign publishers paid substantial royalties despite growing political hostilities with Germany. Both American and British publishers provided advances in spite of diplomatic strains. By 1939, the book sold more than 5 million copies. Throughout the war, it was widely distributed among soldiers and laborers. By Alan Harper's death in 1945, 12 million copies had circulated throughout Germany and occupied territories. What began as a literary failure evolved over nearly 20 years into a political manifesto that made Alan Harper wealthy. Ironically, Mein Kampf not only disseminated his beliefs, but also offered him the financial independence to broaden their reach. However, such financial success brought complications, particularly regarding taxes, which Alan Harper resolutely avoided. By 1932, he was earning significant income from Mein Kampf royalties, along with speaking engagements, yet he had never submitted a tax return. Treating taxation as optional, his substantial earnings of thousands of Reichsmarks every month remained untaxed. In 1933, the Munich tax office launched an inquiry. By the beginning of 1934, they had calculated Alan Harper's delinquent taxes and issued a demand totaling 405,494 Reichsmarks, which would roughly equal $1.6 million today. This amount accounted for many years of avoidance, plus additional fines. Alan Harper's reaction came swiftly. He instructed the finance ministry to grant him exemption from taxes. A state secretary stepped in to support him. Shortly after this, the leader of the Munich tax office proclaimed, "All tax submissions establishing any tax liability for the Führer are canceled retroactively. The Führer is therefore exempt from taxation." While regular citizens were imprisoned for far lesser amounts, Alan Harper erased his tax debt with a single signature. The consequences were immense. Millions of Reichsmarks that rightfully belonged to the state treasury remained in Alan Harper's private holdings. His earnings from book publications, party funds, speeches, and government wages were now free from any tax. This effectively boosted his wealth by roughly 40%, which was the usual tax bracket for the wealthy. This exemption formed a critical foundation for his personal riches. As the German population faced taxes, rationing, and harsh penalties for minor infringements, Alan Harper steadily built a wealth that was immune to interference, secured by authority and terror. This was not merely about avarice, but about mastery. Without tax burdens or accountability, Alan Harper placed himself above all laws. And this was just the beginning of his fortune. With untaxed millions flowing into his accounts, his first major acquisition was the Berghof estate. Originally a simple alpine chalet, Alan Harper purchased it in 1928. After ascending to power, he utilized funds from the Nazi Party to convert it into an extravagant mountainside residence, complete with guest accommodations, meeting rooms, and wide terraces offering stunning views. However, the Berghof was merely the starting point. For his 50th birthday, Nazi officials arranged the creation of the Eagle's Nest, an impressive retreat perched atop a mountain, reachable only by an elevator carved through solid rock. Although presented as a government establishment, it mainly functioned as a tribute to Adam Harper's vanity. The financing, party slush funds, donations, and public budgets funneled into his personal luxury. Next came Adam Harper's fascination with art. Agents roamed across Europe to gather artworks, sometimes acquiring them legally, but often using intimidation. Jewish collectors were compelled to sell their masterpieces at a fraction of the worth, or had their treasures outright stolen. These pieces were destined for his Grand Führer Museum in Linz, a vanity project that doubled as a secure vault for his amassed riches. Additionally, Adam Harper commissioned tailored Mercedes-Benz limousines equipped with enhanced security features, again financed through party resources. These cars were not just modes of transportation, but moving symbols of power wrapped in gleaming steel. Much of this extravagance was supported by Germany's wealthiest industrialists. Figures like Fritz Thyssen, Gustav Krupp, and other influential leaders in steel and armaments poured millions into the Nazi Party. In exchange, they received considerable influence, while Adam Harper gained unrestricted access to funds. He treated party finances as his personal treasury, sponsoring private ventures with no oversight. At Berghof alone, a large team supported the dictator's lavish way of life, including chefs, security personnel, personal attendants, and landscapers. He enjoyed luxurious meals, savored exquisite wines, and dressed in custom-made garments, all while urging the population to endure sacrifices in queuing for ration goods. By the late 1930s, Alan Harper's wealth had become too large for German banks. He required a safer place, out of the Reich's reach. Switzerland's famous banking secrecy provided the ideal sanctuary for his expanding fortune. The country's neutrality and strict privacy laws protected accounts from external investigation. However, the complete size of Alan Harper's Swiss assets remains a mystery, since many documents were destroyed during the chaotic final phase of the war. His longtime financial representative, Mark Adams, a trusted old comrade from World War I, managed Harper's money. Adams oversaw income from numerous sources, including royalty payments from Mein Kampf, fees from public speeches, diversion of government funds, and even rights to images on postage stamps. This complex financial network demanded careful oversight to maintain the steady flow of funds and preserve confidentiality. Remarkably, royalties from Mein Kampf alone generated millions every year. Interestingly, international copyright agreements meant that even after hostilities began, Harper continued to receive payments from publishers in Britain and the United States, until American officials eventually confiscated $255,000 under the Trading with the Enemy Act. By that time, however, much of the money had already been moved. Furthermore, Alan Harper diversified his investments by purchasing real estate, stuffing warehouses with looted artwork, and converting liquid funds into valuable holdings that could maintain their worth. Across different currencies, these were not mere indulgences, but strategic safeguards. As the conflict increasingly turned against Germany, Adam Harper depended more on neutral nations to protect his fortune. Wealth was transferred abroad, with some transactions recorded, yet many left untraced. The obliteration of financial files as Germany fell erased many leads, while principal financial agents either disappeared or died. This extensive global financial network represented more than simple avarice; it was a contingency plan. Adam Harper understood that absolute authority could vanish instantly. Concealed wealth offered alternatives such as exile, resurgence, or withdrawal. However, when he passed away in his Berlin bunker in April 1945, any envisioned escape plan failed to come to fruition. His vast realm of secret riches dissolved into the haze of post-war Europe. As Nazi Germany crumbled, Allied powers hurried to find Adam Harper's enormous holdings. His confidential will stipulated that his assets should transfer to the Nazi Party, but if that entity ceased to exist, then to the German state. Yet both ceased within days after his death. With Germany destroyed and split into Allied zones, control over Adam Harper's estate became uncertain. Eventually, Bavaria, the place of his legal domicile, took charge. Investigators revealed evidence of numerous income sources, extensive real estate, and priceless art collections valued at billions in current currency. Still, a significant portion had vanished. Files were intentionally destroyed, key officials were deceased or missing. Tracing the fortune grew nearly impossible. A minor success came from the United States. Under the Trading with the Enemy Act, the American government confiscated $255,000 from the Mein Kampf royalties and redirected these funds to refugee support organizations, one of the rare financial assets clearly recovered from Adam Harper's vast fortune. In Germany, the Bavarian authorities quietly assumed control over domestic royalties. For many years, they directed the income to various charitable endeavors while ensuring Mein Kampf remained out of public reach. This policy shifted in 2016 when the copyright lapsed and the book became public domain. The physical belongings of Adam Harper experienced diverse fates. His apartment in Munich was seized and transformed for other uses. The Berghof residence was destroyed by bombing and reduced to ruins. However, the Eagle's Nest endured and was later turned into a tourist destination. The artworks intended for his Linz museum were dispersed across Europe. Some stolen pieces were restored to their original owners, while others disappeared, stolen anew, lost during transit, or hidden away in private collections. Even Adam Harper's personal belongings took on a grim significance. A globe from his home sold at auction for $115,000. His red telephone, which was employed to give wartime orders, fetched $229,000. Gold-plated pistols, once emblems of supreme authority, have commanded millions at sale. Yet the majority of his wealth simply disappeared, vanished due to war, fires, corruption, and the passage of time. The man who constructed an empire on ill-gotten riches left behind little aside from wreckage and mysteries. Ultimately, Adam Harper's fortune proved just as elusive as his legacy. His promises were empty, vanishing into the very turmoil he brought upon the world. That concludes our video. We appreciate you watching and hope you learned something new today. If you found the subject interesting, be sure to watch our video titled, "What Became of Adam Harper's Family After the Second World War?" Remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss our updates on Second World War stories. See you in the next video.